Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Lady Baby. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy. Cold darkness surrounds a woman as she feels her consciousness returning. In spite of wondering where she is, Calliope, or Calliope as her family once called her, actually finds the darkness as a calming thing, just as warm as her mother's embrace. And so, the girl who's been through too much allows herself to be taken by the stretching darkness, wishing to stay there in that state, alone, yet calm forever. That is until suddenly, the cries of a baby echo through the supposed empty darkness, startling Calliope. Although she doesn't have time to process this as mere moments later, a blinding light arrives. And Calliope, adjusting her eyes from this sudden burst of light, opens them to find that against all logic, she's now a newborn baby, and the cries from earlier were hers from being brought into the world once again. Maids flock around the new maiden of the family, praising the birth of their new lady master. But none are more excited and concerned for her well-being than her parents. In fact, the first words of her mother, Mrs. Rustichel, after the birth is to ask for her baby, which she snuggles close to her face after the maids give Calliope to her. Not a moment later, her husband, the Duke of the household, bursts into the room with an anxious and excited look. One look at his newborn daughter's face melts the scared feeling the man is experiencing, and after checking the state of his wife and daughter, kisses Rustichel tenderly on the cheeks to congratulate the birth of their first daughter. Their actions are testaments that Calliope will be loved immensely. Suddenly, the baby gives one sharp cry, surprising both her parents. Declaring her voice to be sweet and calm, they named her Calliope. Yes, somehow the only surviving member of their family, Calliope manages to rewind her life right back to her own birth. Guys, I'll continue the story after this announcement. I am super excited to tell you that this video is being sponsored by War Thunder. What's War Thunder, you ask? No, just the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. It's got over 2,000 super detailed vehicles like tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships that can engage in player versus player battles. You've got vehicles all the way from 1920 till today available. And what I like the most about it is that it has a very wide catalog to customize your vehicle to your liking, so you can fight in style. It's even got anime skins and characters from lots of franchises, and you don't need any complicated gear to play. A keyboard and a mouse is all you need. Start playing the game today by joining with my link in the description, and you'll even get a super bonus as a new player with lots of vehicles, boosters, and a special 3D Dakimakura. Even as a baby, Calliope remembers the life she had once and is starting to think that perhaps the lady who asked her to sing must have been some god. Nonetheless, she now has a new start in her old life, and so she vows to value this one much more. Meanwhile, her two attentive older brothers fawn over their little sister, arguing over which one of them Calliope has taken after, be it their eyes or hair. She even has adorable siblings! She will surely be loved by this family. It's actually very sweet how they try their best to calm down the crying baby and how they genuinely care for Calliope. The one good thing about being sent back in time with your memories intact is you remember all the people who've wronged you before. Calliope makes good use of this, even as a baby. She shows her disdain against a certain butler who, despite showing good faith now, turns out to be a very antagonistic figure towards her in the future. I sure hate him already. In order to get rid of him, she throws a tantrum, spilling her food all over his face. She also admits to her main caretaker that she's scared of him, which she says in a very cute baby voice. How adorable. Anyhow, the time comes for Calliope's first birthday, and so the family throws an extravagant party for their only daughter. Because she can speak in almost full sentences in a very cute baby voice, she thanks her family, causing them to appreciate her sweetness. Although they admittedly did not invite tons of guests because they appreciated it too much. Even at 1 year old, they believe Calliope is too beautiful that people will hit on her, as per her mother, and so her father and brothers all swore individual oaths to always protect baby Calliope. Truly a loving family we all want. Her brothers dote on her every instance they get. However, she particularly feels bittersweet every time she lays eyes on the eldest, Lucius, the one who goes missing in the future during their family's lowest. Despite that, she gives her best smile to her stoic yet sweet brother. But as per usual, the second son of the family, Roble, a more playful and cheerful personality than their brother, competes for Calliope's attention by making the baby laugh. Calliope does call him cute, so Roble rubs it in Lucius's face. The eldest, knowing it's better to not encourage his brother any longer, instead focuses on Lipe. They stare in silence, but still, they share a smile. It turns out that the two are making too much noise for the baby, and so the maid comes to take Lipe to their mom because it's time to eat. And yet still, the brothers follow them. They are like little ducklings following the baby around. The two are even mesmerized as they watch Lipe feed on their mother's milk. All the while, Mrs. Rustichel caresses her daughter gently. However, she has to go through the embarrassing burping routine, so that's that. Anyway, Roble pleads with his mom to let him hold Lipe, but Mrs. Rustichel refuses. However, she promises her son that if he manages to master the sword technique he's been practicing, the head slash, then he'll be allowed to hold the baby. But Lucius says he's already done mastering the move, and so he is allowed to hold Lipe by himself. Roble gets annoyed at this, of course, making him declare that he'll also master the move in under a month. The eldest son then fires back an insult that he'll have to stop slacking around if he wants to do so. I'm sorry, Roble, but he's got a point. You better work hard if you want to hold a little baby. But in actuality, Roble takes after their mother, who herself is getting ticked off that Lucius wouldn't let go of her only daughter. Lipe's family gathers for her father's arrival after a long trip. It seems that despite her father being a kind man before, she doesn't have any memory of her dad holding her as a baby. Determined to change that, and a lot of things in her future at that, baby Lipe reaches out her tiny hands so that her father would want to hold her. And he seems willing at it too. But if Roble takes after Rustichel, then Lucius takes after the Duke, having a calm demeanor that is the exact same as his father's. In his jealousy, he determines his dad is tired and so he must hold on to Lipe. As the two engage in a staring contest, Lipe thinks deeply about her family and knowing how they loved her this much. She even thinks that despite them being a little different from her memories, everyone will die early. And so she questions whether or not she's still allowed to be happy even in this new start in life. But all that worrying leads to her being knocked out cold in her sleep. Well, babies aren't meant to be thinking that much anyway. Still, when she wakes up, Lipe feels a sudden burst of encouragement, seemingly out of the desire to savor the moments with her family. The itty-bitty baby tries her hardest to roll over on her side and move. Eventually, through a lot of cute effort, Lipe finally manages to lay on her stomach all on her own, much to her maid's amusement. They even start to feed her baby food instead of being reliant on milk, at the rate she's growing. The fact that Lipe's eating so obediently brings delight to her caretaker. Of course, it's not perfect, as she still chokes on the food on rare occasions. But this time, a certain black-haired boy with golden eyes comes to greet Lipe, and he looks to be close friends with Lucius. Immediately, Lipe recognizes him as Harrison Alpinus, or Hal, the eldest child of Duke Alpinus, and is also the one who went searching and got killed for the disappearance of his best friend Lucius. When Lipe starts frowning because of all the thoughts in her head, Brother Hal smiles at her, saying that she must grow up splendidly. In turn, the baby smiles back, leaving Hal to wonder whether or not Lipe is really a baby. You couldn't be more right, Hal. Anyway, a lot of brotherly ruckus starts when Hal tries to lift Lipe, and an ever-jealous Lucius slaps his hands away, while he himself takes her. Even now, Lipe is shocked by how much affection he shows, unlike in their previous lives. A second later, Roble bursts into the room, demanding his time with Lipe too. But again, Lucius is very territorial of his sister. Regardless, Lipe vows to protect all her brothers from what's to come. Lucius shares his concern for his sister with Hal. Apparently, Lipe is somewhat of a quiet baby. She also doesn't cry a lot, nor does she play with baby toys. Lucius even overhears their parents talking about it. The doctor said there was no physical problem, but still, babies are hard to diagnose. And so Hal, seeing his best friend like this for the first time, does his best to reassure him. And Lucius gets more of that when Roble suddenly arrives. He says that Lipe is attentive with her eyes and how she grasps their fingers whenever they reach out to her, so there's nothing to worry about. As the brothers go, he and Lucius get into another banter, but unexpectedly, the latter caresses the former's head when he realizes that Roble is maturing as an older brother to Lipe. Speaking of Lipe, she's having her very own dilemma now. She's unconsciously doing baby stuff, like sucking her thumb. Embarrassing as it is, it turns out her teeth are growing in, and when she decides to show it to her caretaker, it becomes another big thing in their loving household. Despite her teeth growing in, Lipe still finds it a bit embarrassing when trying to show her mother that she now has them. She is an adult in a baby's body after all. Of course it's embarrassing. However, I'm sorry, I can't help it. You're so cute, Lipe. Unfortunately for her, that feeling goes even deeper as the other members of the family start to arrive on the news that she's really growing up. First, it's her brother Roble, who's as noisy as always. But rather unexpectedly, her father also comes into the room as well, instantly chastising Roble for his ruckus. Lastly, Lucius arrives, asking his mom if Calliope does indeed have teeth. But even with a larger crowd, Calliope still doesn't want to do it. It's only when she sees her father's eager face does she eventually cave in, much to their delight. But that's not the end of her being the center of attention for today. Now, at her feeding time, and with the whole family, father and brothers included, attentively watching her, Calliope decides to do something brave. Without assistance, she grabs the spoon all by herself and tries to eat all on her own. But even the noblest of efforts sometimes fail, and in her case, her wrists aren't strong enough yet for that. Still, even though her family is quite supportive, Calliope is still riddled with embarrassment at her first attempt at eating. Baby Calliope drifts off to sleep with a smile on her face, hoping for the best. Unfortunately, her dreams are filled with memories of the deaths of her family and the ruin of her house. So perhaps sleep is too much for her right now. Regardless, she again vows to do everything in her power to stop all that from happening again. But when she reaches out and notices how tiny her arms are, she falls into despair that she can't do anything as of now. But as quickly as she gets down, she gets back up again, deciding to build herself up little by little. Love the determination. You can change your fate, little Calliope. We know you can. She keeps practicing throughout the night until tears form in her eyes at how bad she still is. But despite that, Calliope is determined nonetheless. Anyhow, the next morning comes and Calliope's nanny notices how much in a good mood the baby is. On the other hand, Calliope stares intently at her caretaker, knowing that she, in the future of her past life, will stay by her side amidst all of the hardships that they will face. Calliope decides to speak her first words, lovingly dedicated to her nanny, but stops herself when she thinks it better to do so when her whole family is present. Not that the nanny minded, though. She still seems very happy at Calliope's cute attempt. Calliope's father strolls into the room where the baby is having her meal. His gentle hands caress the baby as he checks on her as he passes by, and Calliope almost utters words again. In the cutest way, she stops herself from speaking, as she wants her whole family present when she utters her first complete words. She had these words mulling over in her head for months, and now she's capable of attempting it and determined to do so at that. And pretty soon, she gets her wish as her two brothers, along with her mother, arrive just in time after her meal. Not wishing to delay herself any longer, baby Calliope overcomes her nervousness in order to speak in very clear sentences, though with only a few words muffled with her baby talk. Even her messages are so sweet, as she first mentions her parents and how thankful she is to them for giving birth to her, then how much she loves her brothers and even her nanny, which she's grateful for. Perhaps the only thing that can top the cuteness, or the suddenness rather, of Calliope's first complete words are the faces of each of the people she mentions when she finally speaks. Even her usually collected father couldn't hide his shock. Such a touching moment. Nevertheless, baby Calliope seems proud of her progress, though it takes her a while to notice her entire family frozen in place. Roble is the first to respond, as usual, because his excitement always gets the better of him, and he smothers Calliope with his hugs and kisses. Lucius also says, "I love you," back to Calliope, though he first makes sure to put on a calm face before he does so, something Roble teases him for. In spite of all that, Calliope is happy that this is the first time Lucius actually put those feelings into words for her. Meanwhile, it's now her parents' turn to give their love as well, as both her father and mother hug and say their words of affirmation. And perhaps keeping with the family's now boosted emotions, the Duke suddenly calls for his two sons and says, "I love you," to them both as well. Aw, what a sweet moment! Though at first the boys are at a loss on what to say because of their father's out-of-the-blue statement, Roble finds himself answering back despite the awkwardness. And in that moment, the Duke realizes that perhaps his sternness can sometimes hurt his sons, and they deserve compliments from time to time. Regardless, they are proud of Roble's expressiveness and Lucius' maturity, and Rustichel reminds her sons again how much their parents love them. Such a sweet family moment, all because of Calliope. Happiness is the best emotion, simply because it's infectious. All of them, for the first time in Calliope's new and old life, declared their love for one another. And Calliope, despite being a baby who can't share her family's attention that much as of now, finds that happiness also creeps in just by watching her family. As it seems, her rather fast development and unnatural intelligence don't go unnoticed much longer, as a while later, Rustichel mentions that to her husband. When his wife mentions how their daughter is growing up too fast, even speaking full sentences at barely a year old, the Duke admittedly lets the fact slip his mind because of Liepei's love. Now, worry creeps in as his wife shows concern about the possibility of their daughter perhaps not being all right. Suddenly, the Duke asks the nanny's opinion on the matter. After considering her answer, the nanny admits that worry is among the things she felt the moment she knew Liepei is different from other babies, but she only thinks so because she considers her as special. The nanny's positive attitude manages to flip Liepei's parents' opinion right on top of their heads. With happiness and excitement replacing their worry from earlier, the couple gets excited at the thought of their child being a possible genius. Speaking of the nanny, she finds herself answering a maid's question about Liepei's sudden first words when the night has arrived. Of course, she confirms it as the truth, and even shows a little bit of pride when she mentions how baby Liepei is also thankful to her caretakers as well. But as luck would have it, they did not have the time to talk about it more as the baby has fallen asleep, and so the two caretakers reaffirm their happiness at their master's youthful intelligence, right before the nanny is left with Liepei. Now caressing the baby's hair, the nanny feels thankful as Liepei's kind words about her still ring in her mind. Liepei finds herself grasping her nanny's fingers as she puts her to bed, though it's only to say that she thinks her nanny is part of her family too. Now that Liepei's openly talking, she sure does take every opportunity to do so. Anyway, the sweet words from her young miss melt the heart of the old caretaker, who gently picks up the baby for a hug and declares that she loves Liepei as her own. As for Liepei, the image of her caretaker from her ruined past life is still fresh in her mind, as if a memory from yesterday. Not wanting for that to happen again becomes another fuel to Liepei's desire to grow as quickly as possible. While she's thinking about training her body more, the nanny notices her clasping her hands open and close, so she tries to test her young mistress's ability to control her movements. After showing her ways to do so, by tapping a finger in one's palm to be exact, Liepei is determined to get the exercise done despite failing once or twice. And speaking of effort with muscle control, after some time has passed, Liepei is trying to learn how to walk with her father as her guide. With her father urging her to come to him, Liepei's face fills with a bit of disappointment. Nonetheless, the disappointment is replaced with determination as she is adamant she gets this done one little baby step at a time. Although whenever she gets a little bit closer, her father steps back a bit, making her walk a bit longer. In the cutest way possible, she breathes deeply, right before scolding her father about not testing her limits that much. The Duke's eyes are like owls due to shock, but still, he manages to say sorry to his baby daughter. When in actuality, he's extremely proud that his daughter is showing signs of being a genius. Anyway, now with her father's promise not to step back anymore, the cute, pouting Liepei again continues taking her baby steps little by little, closely walking towards her father's smile and wide open arms, right until she reaches him and the two embrace. It's such a sweet sight, looking at a father who loves his children very much. Liepei's parents are exploding in joy and excitement as their daughter finally managed to make her first steps. Both her mother and even her father are filled with smiles as they say how proud they are of Liepei. Her father starts kissing his daughter on the cheeks tenderly, though Liepei finds that his beard stings whenever he does that. Her mother even circles the date on their calendar in order to commemorate her first baby steps, making Liepei thankful that she isn't part of the royal family because things like this tend to be handled way too much than necessary. And to even go further from his usual self, the Duke shows his playful side by singing and lifting the baby high up in his arms. That is, until his wife grabs the child while scolding him for doing so. Even the Duke is no match for his wife, it seems. Anyway, Liepei now finds herself in front of her meal during her feeding time, and it seems that she isn't as immune to baby-like thoughts. Out of the blue, she keeps getting the urge to flip the bowl of food over. In her mind, her mature side and baby thoughts are fighting, simply because she wants to see the wide side of the bowl facing the table. Right when she's losing the battle, a knock rang through the door. The butler that Liepei despises has made his appearance once again, though this time he's only there to talk to her caretaker. Seeing as she's busy with the young lady, he instead excuses himself and asks to meet with her another time. However, with the insistence of her nanny, who wants the butler to get to know the young miss, she urges him to come forward. But in what is perhaps the coldest stare she has ever made in her life, Liepei seems to strike cold daggers with her gaze, and in 2 words, she asks the butler to leave. Brr! A baby being cold! Now that's something you don't see every day. Though the butler has a kind demeanor and a calm attitude and is perfect in everyone's eyes, there's something unsettling about him. In her past life, this butler was two-faced. In the present, Calliope bites her lower lip out of hatred and resentment towards him. Despite struggling to hold the plate, she suddenly splashes it on his face. Ah! Be gone, butler! The butler wipes the food from his face and leaves the room displeased. Her nanny wonders what could be the reason behind Calliope's behavior. But given how Calliope's brothers acted the same before, it just shows how bad he is when it comes to children. Calliope grabs her nanny's dress and openly tells her that she doesn't want to see the butler because he's scary. As the nanny comforts the baby, she can't help but suspect that the butler is bullying her when nobody's around, so she has to be cautious about him. Aw, how kind of her! Calliope's surely surrounded by lovely people. Later on, the whole family celebrates Calliope's second birthday. Everyone gathers around and dresses up nicely. Despite her very young age, she already manages to formulate words to speak, though she still talks like a baby. Her mother made the right choice not to invite any guests, or else Calliope will be the talk of the town if they hear that she can speak. Her mother is her biggest fan, admiring how she gave birth to a lovely, cute, and smart daughter, to the point that she's already overthinking that there'd be a lot of people to pursue her. Calm down, mother. She can barely flip over yet. Meanwhile, Calliope's father thinks of something else, like never giving up on his daughter. Brother Lucius, on the other hand, always wants to live with her. And the most unbelievable of all is that Roble thinks of marrying his baby sister. Like, that would happen, Roble? But despite how crazy and troublesome they are, they agree on one thing. They will always protect her no matter what. Calliope continues talking like a grown-up. The whole family just stands there and listens to every word she says, somehow surprised that a 2-year-old baby can say something so deep. Realizing how immersed they look, Calliope remembers that during the past year, she was mostly lying down in the cradle as she kept being haunted by her past tragedy. Every day, as she looked at how much they treasured her existence, she didn't think of anything else but to grow faster and protect them. Because of this, she was getting impatient and frustrated at herself for being too small and weak. But you can't rush this thing, Calliope. Humans don't just grow up overnight. However, this time she realizes that spending time with her family is just as important as protecting them. And so she happily tells them that their time together for the past year is the most precious one, closest to her heart. Aww, I hope she'd just stay like a baby forever. She's way too cute and sweet. The whole family is even more surprised at this point. How come a 2-year-old baby can say something like that? Her parents look at each other and finally come to a conclusion. Their daughter is a genius. Looking at how happy they are, Calliope is even more motivated to protect her family's happiness. She wants to make more memories together, but she still has time to save everyone's life. That's right, Calliope. Don't pressure yourself to grow up so quickly and just enjoy the present. And because of the way she talks to them, her father now thinks that he might be old and weak in Calliope's eyes, so he declares to increase the amount of training. Hearing this, Lucius whispers to Roble, saying that the White Dragon Knights will be going through some hell's training. There's no way their father's going to train by himself. One morning, Roble and Lucius spend their time in a duel. Recently, Roble notices that Lucius, who has a cold personality, starts to have a conversation with him. Ever since Calliope was born, the two brothers have gotten closer, and Lucius sometimes pats his brother's head, especially if Roble learns a new skill. Calliope has really become the glue that holds this family even closer. As for Roble, ever since he started training harder to be able to hold Calliope, training has become fun and become more prideful of his swordsmanship. So having a duel with Lucius, who is known for his swordsmanship, makes him worthy enough to be his opponent. On the other hand, Lucius notices how Roble has improved over the past 2 years. As Roble swings his wooden sword, Lucius manages to dodge it, leaving his opponent unable to retreat from getting hit. It is shameful for a knight to close their eyes during a duel, so Roble bravely faces his brother, who's now going to hit him. But instead, Lucius smirks and drops his sword to give him a head flick. This sibling relationship is so cute. Roble remembers when he used to flick Calliope's head, so to avenge her, Lucius hit him with that too. Even though he has a cold personality, he can be childish sometimes. And so the brothers continue to argue about Calliope's wide vocabulary that they don't even know about. Inside the mansion, Calliope's father seems so anxious about his body, remembering what Calliope said about growing old with her. He resolved to do brutal training just to improve his muscles, but still, it won't stick out like a bodybuilder. His wife notices him getting all anxious about his body, so she compliments him, saying that he's still full of energy. Lai Pei's father blushes at his wife's remarks. He then leans closer to her and asks if they shall have another daughter. All right, folks, time to focus on the baby. Although it is adorable that these sneaky parents are still so sweet on each other. In the garden, Lai Pei's practicing to walk straight. She's so focused on her goal that she isn't even paying attention to how the servants giggle at her cuteness. She's still having trouble walking straight and ends up losing her balance. Just then, the servants offer their hands to help her stand, while some continue to admire how adorable she is. As she looks at them, she remembers the past when they had to fire all the workers because the house was ruined and her mother fell ill. Even still, some continue to visit because they were worried. And so Lai Pei smiles as she thanks them for trying to lift her up. All those who witness the baby talking are shocked that the rumors are true. The baby is a genius. The servants then argue about whom should Lai Pei reach out to whenever she needs their help. But Lai Pei makes it clear that they have their own special jobs and that she can't just call them anytime. Also, she addresses that if there's anything troubling them, then they should talk to her. Everyone now thinks of her as the genius of the century. Well, not entirely everyone. They say that in every sheep, there's always a black one. This time, a worker suddenly blurts out how weird and disgusting that a 2-year-old can speak like that. He isn't even planning on speaking politely to her, calling everyone pathetic and pitiful for doing so. How dare this person? What kind of an adult picks a fight with a child? This angers the servant who supports Lai Pei, calling him crazy for bullying a child. He still continues to spout nonsense to the point that the servants unite to have him pay for the price of speaking ill toward Lai Pei. You go, guys! Defend the baby from that weirdo bully! Shortly after, words reach Lai Pei's mother. The butler thinks that the worker wasn't entirely wrong for thinking that indeed, Lai Pei is a weird one. But of course, he just keeps that opinion to himself, or else his head would be flying in an instant. Lai Pei's mother then orders him not to let this bad news reach her daughter's ears. She still mumbles to herself instead of focusing on the important matters. Just because of a small incident like this, she forgot the order of urgent matters. This time, she clenches her fist on the table, looking so annoyed and agitated. And then, a thought comes to mind. Later that day, she summons the servants one by one to hear about Gilbert, the worker who spoke bad things about Lai Pei. Turns out that Gilbert keeps sexually harassing the maids many times already, and instead of doing his job, he procrastinates all the time. Mrs. Rustichel now looks really cheerful despite having heard bad things about Gilbert. Well, that's not because she doesn't care about her servants, but because they're bringing more reasons to fire him. Yes, Queen! You need to kick that man out! If she fires him without a reason, the workers would start rumors that might end up reaching Lai Pei. Also, she can't continue to have a troublesome worker, and because of that, he will be... dun dun dun! Truthfully, as soon as the butler mentioned Gilbert, his future was already decided. Thanks to everyone who loves Lai Pei so dearly, everything became easier for Mrs. Rustichel. What could be her plan? Later that night, Gilbert is all beat up. How did this happen? Well, he was kicked out of the Rustichel property and was forbidden to even enter. Serves him right. The owner of the resto bar recognized him at first glance. Who wouldn't remember someone who was dumb and stupid enough to cause trouble to the Rustichel family after hiring him despite his behavior? Hearing the rumors that it's difficult for him to look for another job, the owner was sick and worried if he even had money for the beer. Suddenly, the other servants also entered the same resto bar where Gilbert was. And of course, he snapped out and blamed them for the situation he was in. The servants were about to leave in order not to cause trouble. But then Gilbert went crazy and started justifying how he didn't sexualize women and that they should be grateful for wearing a skirt with a body like that. Can someone teach this guy a lesson? He's getting on our nerves. That's it. The male servant who worked as a gardener clenched his fist and asked him to go outside. And there, Gilbert got beat up so bad that he looked like trash himself. I'm sorry, morals, but this guy definitely deserves this. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Lai Pei takes a peek at Reborn, who diligently reads books for her sake. She then sits beside her brother and asks him to continue reading the book. Reborn can't contain her cuteness, so he hugs and pats her head. Even though he gets mad when thinking about it, he believes that Lucius did say something that he should read books. Lucius never said that. Also, his mother was teary-eyed seeing him reading a book. He then realizes that Lai Pei came to him because she thinks that he's cool too. Well, of course he imagines himself handsomely reading a book. Well, that's how he thinks of himself. Who are we to judge that? Fascinated by his own imagination, he tries to find a perfect word to match his fantasies. He asks Calliope if he is intensely handsome. The actual word is intellectually. Calliope's expression isn't what he expected. A while ago, he thought Calliope would ask him to marry her after she fell in love with how handsome he looked when reading a book. Ugh, this boy is really hopeless. Bro, you better grow out of this because, well, she's your sister. Calliope looks at him and starts lecturing him about using proper words. People's personalities are developed by how they talk and behave. Robil stares at her blankly, unable to comprehend what his sister said. She said developed, but he heard diarrhea. Calliope, on the other hand, is treating her brother like a baby. She forgot that she herself is a baby too. Robil brightly smiles at her and plays with her pinky promise. Even though Robil is like that, his personality makes him cute and bright as a person. Shortly after, Robil starts reading an arithmetic book. Clearly, he isn't that good in academics, but he also doesn't want Calliope to think that he's a dumb brother. Aw, you're still learning. Don't be hard on yourself. For no reason, Robil is embarrassed when Calliope stares at him while he's counting numbers. Confident that a 2-year-old kid won't know about math, he loudly arrives at the wrong answer. Knowing that her brother will be sad if she says he's wrong, she decides to let him figure out the answer by himself. Besides, it's normal to make mistakes at such a young age. And so she asks him to teach her numbers. Robil is so happy that his little sister relies on him. Now he thinks of himself as the number genius. He then asks her to open her hands and bends her finger as he counts 0. For a moment, he forgets his objective and starts squishing her small fingers. Calliope pulls her hand away, asking her brother to use his fingers instead. Surprisingly, he is explaining it pretty well. Calliope is sort of proud looking at her brother, who now looks even happier. But then, he realizes something. Robil finally arrives at the correct answer. Looking at Calliope, he thinks that she won't know that he messed up. But of course, Calliope already knows, but she's still very proud of her brother. She realizes that acting like a baby isn't that bad. Calliope goes back to her room as Robil keeps studying, motivated that he can teach her more in the future. Later that day, Lucius enters her room without knocking first. Of course, Calliope is so strict about manners, so he got reprimanded a little. Still, Lucius finds her cute as her small body is shaking because half of her body is her head. LOL, why are you thinking that way? And why are you making that face, Lucius? It's not so like you. He then approaches her and pats her head. Somehow he feels displeased as he remembers how Robil bragged about earlier. Isn't it a good thing that Robil is interested in studying? This time, he is also determined to be Calliope's teacher, assuring her that he's a better one. Seeing her brother's stern face, she can't figure out if he's really jealous or what. So she tries to explain that they are both great at it and that there's nothing to compare. Just then, Lucius suddenly brings her closer to him. Confirmed! Lucius is jealous. Calliope doesn't know how to handle the situation. However, she's able to say something really important. One's opponent isn't from the outside, but from the inside. Winning against oneself is something worth calling a true victory. Just then, Lucius remembers what his father always tells him during training. How did he forget the words that he used to hold dear? Lucius now feels shameful to admit that there's no point in competing against Robil, and so he offers to read her a fairy tale instead. Seriously, it's difficult to understand rivalry between kids. Years have passed, and Calliope is now at the age of 5. She looks pretty dazzling as she sparkles at every angle. Her mother, who helps in picking an outfit for her tea party, shows how much she adores her daughter even more to the point that they spend hours just for an outfit. Shortly after, Calliope's ready to go to her tea party. Calliope's pronunciation has gotten better throughout the year, so there's no problem in communicating with other people. Also, it's her first time socializing after the incident in the past where everyone in her family died. Considering how it was easily buried away, it must be related to high nobles who can easily cover up such issues. As she looks at her mother, she's being reminded that she still has 10 more years to cherish every moment with her family. For now, her priority is to make her mother happy. Speaking of the tea party, she overhears her mother and Nanny's conversation about Lady Sarlino's appearance at the tea party. It's been a year since the noble lady attended a social gathering after what happened, but still, Mrs. Rustichel is glad that the child who survived will be able to attend the party. The Sarlino family originally had twins. The older twin sister sadly died in an unfortunate accident. For the younger brother to experience this much trauma, he later committed mass murder as he grew older. Losing a family member is the most painful feeling, but still, that doesn't justify murder. Murder won't change anything. As soon as Lipe and Mrs. Rustichel arrive at the social banquet, Lipe introduces herself in an elegant manner. The nobles fawn over her and directly ask Mrs. Rustichel about the child's etiquette teacher. Of course, there's none. She learned by herself. She's just naturally perfect. Despite Mrs. Rustichel's honest remarks, a noblewoman suddenly joins the conversation and shames Mrs. Rustichel's reputation by calling her selfish. Another meddlesome person! These people are just jealous, I tell you. Everyone becomes silent for a moment. Some even laugh about it. Seriously? Too much fuss over a teacher? To be insulted at a social gathering is a common occurrence, so Mrs. Rustichel decides to let it slide, but how dare they say such things about her lovely Lipe? Lipe is a tactful child. She must have already noticed the change in atmosphere by now. Speaking of Lipe, Mrs. Rustichel panics for a second, looking where she is. Suddenly, Lipe announces to everyone that her one and only teacher is her mother. She's been watching her mother since birth, which is why she's well-versed in etiquette. Oof, that's quite a slap on that noble lady's face. The noblewoman is taken aback by how she tears down all the fuss to shame Mrs. Rustichel in front of everyone. Perhaps she's just jealous that the lady has a very elegant and smart kid. True, there really are many shameless people in the world, even in this novel. But Lipe's not done yet. She compliments everyone for raising their children wonderfully, but sometimes it might be better to be on the same wavelength as their child. And so she proceeds to tell them what they're lacking. That's right, Lipe. Show them whose daughter you are. This time, Lipe points out the noble lady's child, who's 2 years younger than Lipe. It's normal for a 3-year-old kid to not be used to etiquette. If she has high etiquette as a mother, it may cause problems with her child's growth. So it's better to love her child as she is now because the time will come when she'll eventually learn about it. Everyone is shocked to know how well-spoken this child is. As Lipe excuses herself, everyone's opinion about her mother changes as the ladies flock toward Mrs. Rustichel. Meanwhile, as Lipe wanders around, she comes across Mrs. Sarlino and her daughter. Lipe knows that something is off. Does that mean that the daughter didn't die yet? When Angelina, daughter of Lady Sarlino, sits comfortably on the couch, Lipe comes up to her and introduces herself. Lipe notices that Angelina seems like she doesn't like people, and the fact she chose to sit in the corner and accidentally introduces herself as you, our lady baby, already has doubts about this little girl. But no matter how she looks at her, she doesn't look like a boy. But the way she sits, she somehow resembles her brother, and all those blisters on her hands are not normal for a girl. And so, Lipe comes up with an excuse for staring at her longer. She then compliments her dress, but Angelina isn't even responding to that. How very strange indeed. Perhaps... Suddenly, Lipe asks her what dresses she likes. Angelina seems startled by this question. Unable to give a proper answer, she then points at Lipe's bow, saying that she likes clothes that have those decorations attached. Lipe smiles. She already knows. A smile forms on young Calliope's face as she regards her new friend. Based on her intuition alone, she deduces that the supposed girl in front of her isn't Angelina Sarlino, but in fact her twin brother Julian. Of course, it seems very peculiar for a boy to dress and act like a girl this early on, and what's even more, even Calliope can't remember in her past life whether or not Julian also did so. Though admittedly, she isn't much of an outgoing person. But still, if Julian is dressing up like his dead twin sister as a kid, then that would also explain why Calliope didn't see that much of him in her previous life too. And with that sad fact, it must be because Julian has been so deeply traumatized by his twin sister's death that he decided to live Angelina's life. Oh, I feel really bad for Julian. What's more alarming of Julian's current state is if he's left alone, he will surely grow up to be a killer. Though of course, with her father's teaching ringing in her ears, Calliope decides to befriend Julian all the same, without making a mention of his sister or the fact that she knows his secret. In between little bits of awkwardness, they manage to actually enjoy each other's company. That is, until a certain boy with light blonde hair and purple eyes approaches the two girls. It seems he's intent on making trouble, as right off the bat, he bluntly asks Angelina whether or not his twin brother has just died, all while wearing a smug look on his face. Fortunately, Calliope is there, and she herself, despite being technically the youngest one there, speaks calmly for the Lady Sarlino. And she even chastised the young boy for his demeanor, calling him a child. Even though that comment is true regardless, because, they're all kids, Calliope certainly clapped back against the bully. Since he very well is one, he proceeds to act more childlike, though not after Calliope questions why he would ever bring up Angelina's dead brother. Right now, Calliope is in a stalemate with the boy who intruded her time with Julian, aka Angelina. Whispers and stares from the crowd start to surface, as somehow, a 5-year-old girl has calmly taken a hold of the situation and shown her mature side against such a sensitive issue. Of course, the boy tries to defend himself as best he can, frantically saying that he was only curious, so that's why he asked that of Angelina. The boy feels the immense pressure coming from the crowd, and from little Calliope herself. Though he may not have intended to be hurtful, he still manages to do exactly that when he insensitively asks about her dead sibling. But Calliope, without a single trace of malice in her eyes, only bids the boy to never speak of such things. Anyway, Calliope's example is perhaps for the best, as Julian, under the guise of Angelina, who has just been observing the confrontation at the side, admits to himself that as soon as he heard the boy talk, nothing but malice surfaces from his emotions, enough for him to want to rip his mouth off. Even as a child, those thoughts are scary. Thankfully, Calliope's words gave some sort of enlightenment for Julian. If she can change the situation with just a few words without violence, then perhaps even he can become like Calliope. And so Angelina decides to do what Julian did to her and asks an insensitive question. Still, Calliope knows the reason as to why the boy was so intrigued and trying to get attention from the Lady Sarlino. So she bade him to at least show maturity at accepting his own mistakes. Though, Calliope wonders what would the boy think when he finds out the girl he likes is actually a boy. Nonetheless, the boy actually sincerely apologizes, and afterwards, they learn that he is, in fact, Hildert Simona. Now with their confrontation finally out of the way, Calliope seems to recognize the name Hildert from her past. As it turns out, the boy, who is actually nice by the way, becomes the head of the Aprax Palace at just 19 years old. Though quite young, he soon proves his worthiness of his title as a high-ranking official in the center of the Empire's political strategy. Yet still, Calliope notes how hints of his arrogance are already present at such a young age, though him apologizing makes it all the better. Calliope is certainly rational enough to recognize sincerity. And so, Calliope's attitude towards him does a complete 180, with her actually smiling and talking gently at him, something Hildert notices. Being the proper lady that she is, which seems like a cheat code at this point in her life, Calliope says that she now treats Hildert as a mature person, not a child, simply because he is able to recognize and own up to his faults. A clever way to manipulate a child, if I say so myself. This behavior leaves a significant impact on the young boy, and with a solemn face, he actually tries to ask permission to call Calliope by her nickname, until the latter was dragged away by Angelina. Perhaps Hildert was trying to impress her and not Angelina, as Calliope had previously thought. Anyway, it seems that Calliope's good behavior has managed to rub off on Angelina as the two try some sweets for tea. Although, she sometimes thinks that if she didn't know any better, she wouldn't suspect it was Julian at all. Still, she doesn't confront him about it, and they go about their way. Anyway, it seems that Angelina has a bit of a sweet tooth and tries to get Calliope to eat macarons as well. Even though she herself isn't into sweets, Calliope accepts them out of kindness. It's also cute how Angelina tries to pretend that she doesn't like them when Calliope finally admits that she isn't that into sweets. But since she's on a mission to be nice, Calliope ate the dessert anyway. Meanwhile, it seems that Lady Calliope has been making waves during the social gathering too. It turns out Hildert's mother was so impressed by Calliope's good manners, even Lucius as well when he was smaller, that she tries to ask Lady Rustichel to tutor her child as a favor. It seems that the famous Marchioness Simona, Hildert's mother, who had asked for Lady Rustichel's guidance on raising her son, has a bit of an interesting rise to her current social standing. Working at the Aprax Palace when she was younger, her undeniable charms made it a point that she stood out in spite of her relatives being only viscounts. However, the famous lady had a tremendous change starting when she fell in love. Apart from not being snobby, she even started to attend social gatherings of lower class standings, and had in fact acted modest and not in the elegant way she's known for. With all that being said, Lady Rustichel knows that a lot of other wives would be delighted to make the Marchioness, and it's good that Calliope got complimented because of her manners. But she still thinks that being asked to be a tutor is a bit sudden and perhaps a bit too much. The Marchioness manages to pick up on Lady Rustichel's hesitance, and so she instead asks that Calliope visit their home instead, under the pretense that the child would benefit from the meeting. But what Marchioness Simona actually wants is the fact that Hildert actually listens to Calliope and makes him have a change of heart. On the other hand, Lady Rustichel's protective mother mode is fully on display at the thought of her only daughter being pushed into an acquaintance with a boy that early on. We stan a protective mama indeed. But Lady Simona, who to her credit is actually good at reading people, picks up on this as well and offers to invite both Roble and Lucius as well. Sure that no one will be able to get through Calliope with her brothers there as a door, and with Lady Simona's eager expression on her face, Lady Rustichel finally agrees. Meanwhile, the topic of the conversation, Calliope, runs into Hal. She almost slips, saying that she remembers him even though the last time they saw each other was when she was a baby, but Calliope still manages an excuse. Nonetheless, Hal finds himself very fond of Calliope because she treats him like a child, despite her unusual maturity at her age. Hal again admits that he's being forced to babysit because he has a lot of siblings. Way too much for his mother to handle, in fact. But still, with an air of maturity in her smiles, Calliope manages to change Hal's perspective about the whole thing by saying his mother, Lady Alpinus, must be very happy to have such considerate children if Hal's doing that. Oh, I love that Calliope's sweet words can easily sway people. The boy gets shocked at how composed and ladylike Calliope is at such a young age, leading him to loudly wish for his siblings to be like her instead. Hal also assumes that perhaps the reason why Calliope hasn't been allowed to go out that much is because of that very same maturity. Nonetheless, he asks whether or not Calliope can come visit at his place, with a dazzling yet somehow charmingly laid-back smile written right across his face. When Calliope wonders if he only means a visit, Hal makes it clear that he truly wishes the lady would live at his household, even musing the idea of exchanging some of his siblings to do so. Not being a very good big brother there, Hal. Anyhow, Calliope tries to deny the request, saying that she likes living with her older brothers. And yet Hal doesn't give up, saying that he does treat her better than them, and even calls Calliope a sister, again, along with his charming smile. However, in another matter, that very same smile allows Calliope to figure out how Hal gets into a lot of trouble with the ladies in her past life, up to the point where even if he doesn't do anything, the flirty nature of his gets him slapped by more than one girl during social gatherings. Anyway, back to the present, along with Angelina's sudden arrival to glare at Hal, and with Calliope's own reasoning, Hal finally stops asking her to become his sister. Although, he does admit that he's extremely jealous of Lucius for having a sibling like Calliope. And Calliope, on the other hand, finds herself with a feeling of contentment because Hal still thinks of his best friend whenever he talks. Speaking of Lucius, he arrives just in time to slap away Hal's hand as he tries to touch Calliope. Although he's got nothing against his best friend, he still bids Calliope to stay away from Hal, despite the latter waving back happily at them as he gets toppled by his many siblings. The sudden warning from her brother Lucius about ignoring Hal makes Calliope confused, simply because he's just a friend and Lucius's best friend at that. However, simply because Lucius tends to become a little bit overdramatic when protecting his little sister, he somehow comes to the conclusion that Calliope must have fallen in love with Hal when she supposedly takes his side defending him. Thankfully, Lucius's expression softens when being introduced to Angelina, as he lets down his guard when Calliope is around girls. Oh, if you only knew, Lucius. Still, it seems his intuition knows a whole lot more than what he does, as Lucius feels a tingle of jealousy when he sees Calliope holding Angelina's hands, as the latter hid from him behind his sister's back. But not wanting to intrude further on Calliope and her new friend, Lucius excuses himself. Though not before assuring Calliope that he'll be fine and have plenty to do because Hal is there. Ever the gentleman, our Lucius. However, Calliope gets a bit nervous when her brother mentions something about Hal. If only she can see the malicious smile Lucius forms when looking for Hal, she'd know she was right. It didn't take long for him to find Hal as well, as the latter is still being pestered by his siblings. They scrambled away from Hal just as quickly, though, as if they could feel the angry aura emanating from their brother's best friend. Even Hal seems scared at Lucius's arrival. At first, Hal tries to defend himself, but Lucius is adamant that because Calliope is special, no matter the age, people will fall in love with her. As Hal puts it, Lucius does seem to go a bit crazy for Calliope. Anyway, Hal declares he likes older women, and even though Lucius insults him about it, he seems to drop his accusations nonetheless. Rather, he instead bids his best friend to continue talking about that when he's properly fallen in love. But Hal's only reply is that there are many girls, each with their own type of beauty. Lucius calls him crazy for that. Anyway, Hal seems to think much about Lucius' words about falling in love. He looks at Calliope, who had rejoined the gathering with Angelina. A wave of sadness covers Hal's face, just as he admits to his best friend that he hasn't truly felt love from anyone. In order to clear his sudden confession to an otherwise surprised Lucius, Hal states that he has hardly ever loved that many people since he rarely falls for them as well. And so, the young boy breaks down rather pitifully, simply because a lot of people assume he's in love with or trying to get with a lot of girls. But as Lucius plainly puts it, it's Hal's own problem if he's ignorant about the fact that unbeknownst to him, his naturally flirty attitude is the cause of his image problem that adds too much to his worries. Though he doesn't want to admit it either, Lucius knows that Hal's good looks are dangerous to say the least, and so he again bids his friend to stay away from his sister. Lucius sure is protective of Calliope, as he should. Hal, on the other hand, finds it confusing as in the first place, he's been hanging out with him since they were little kids, and Lucius only changed when Calliope was born. Still, he finds that he's now more interested in seeing Calliope simply because of Lucius's added warning, kind of like a forbidden fruit type of situation. Uh-oh, you better be careful, Hal. With that, he leaves Lucius by teasing him that Calliope herself asks to see him, so he'll be visiting their estate anyway. Meanwhile, in what seems to be a dream, or perhaps a certain memory of her past life, Calliope comes into consciousness of her older body, waking up to the cries of a young boy outside, crying over his dead mother's corpse. Rushing outside to help, Calliope is stopped by a knight who, despite himself wanting to help because he made an oath to his daughter before she died, is bound by duty to remove Calliope from anything dangerous during the war. Calliope is thankful for the knight's kindness at protecting her, yet still, she doesn't see any point in living, much less keeping safe. Her family is gone. She has experienced betrayal, and what's more, she dreads the fact that she's still alive. And so, amidst the cruelty of life, she tries to convince her lone knight that neither dying nor injuries are the most immediate danger to her right now. But she is losing herself. In spite of everything she's been through, Calliope is still determined to reach out to anybody whenever they need help. She is so kind. Our Calliope deserves the world. Her determination is very evident in her eyes, so much so that the knight shielding her way out flinches. If that's not enough still, she declares that even if she dies, she will help that child. But you have to be careful too, Calliope. But suddenly, a loud banging sound echoes through the night. As the knight quickly moves Calliope out of the way, all she sees is a crater seemingly formed from an explosive, materialized right where the child and his dead mother lay. Oh no, how tragic! Witnessing this must be so painful for Calliope. Calliope sees there's no chance at helping the poor family as she grabs a tiny scruff of clothing floating in the air. She tries to apologize for being stubborn despite not actually being able to help. But the knight replies that if her kindness is considered stubborn, then he's protecting her out of his own stubbornness as well. Nonetheless, the knight asks them to leave, but in order to provide relief to his master, he asks if Calliope wants to bury the mother and child before they go. And so the two make their way to a cemetery, and Calliope even dirties her hands at such attempt to lay these strangers to rest. Apparently, she feels ashamed to have such undamaged hands despite the ongoing war. The rain pours down heavily right as they place the last stones on the strangers' graves, and soon after, Calliope decides to sing. A song, as the knight notes, isn't to send the dead happily off, but to express her anger and sympathy for those departed. Truly, the very essence of a requiem song. Little did they know that after she finishes her song, a mysterious woman appears, along with the daylight after the rain. She curiously asks why Calliope would sing to the grave of strangers, to which the latter's reply is so that they'll at least depart happily. Kindness seems to emerge from Calliope as she stares at the sky for the departed she sang her song for. All the while, the mysterious lady who appeared before them stares intently at her. The white-haired stranger comments how Calliope must have regrets, to which the lady of House Rustichel's only reply is she no longer knows if regret is what she can call it. The stranger approaches, and the knight tries all he can to defend his lady, but she pays him no heed. Instead, she directs her attention at Calliope, determined to give her a favor in exchange for the beautiful song she just sang. She comes even closer to the point that the knight's sword almost touches her chin. But all she does is to praise Lai Pei's voice and says she'll make sure that Lai Pei will go to a happy place this time. With that, a burst of magic erupts from the stranger as a blue magic circle emerges from her feet. The lady bids her to sing one last time, and Lai Pei's consciousness fades to black. Now back to the present, Lai Pei thinks hard about the woman who gave her a second chance, and about the song that allowed her to do so. The song was from a woman of common standing, a maid who put all her emotions into one song. Lai Pei thinks singing might attract the stranger again, and so she tries to sing for the first time. Although the only person she attracts is her nanny, who, despite praising her voice, says that happy songs are more suited for her. Lai Pei hugs her nanny out of her nostalgic scent, and the two discuss how the young lady manages to know of such a song. Lai Pei almost slips up by saying she heard the folk song a long time ago, but manages to escape from her blunder. What she didn't escape, however, was the following morning, the nanny happily relayed to the rest of the family about Lai Pei's angelic voice when singing, sending the family into a Lai Pei-induced frenzy. Everyone is eager to hear Lai Pei sing, even her mother, who usually takes her side in matters like this, so Lai Pei has no choice but to sing. Immediately afterwards, a deafening silence ensues, mainly due to the shock from the rest of the family, who conclude that Lai Pei must not have been human to have such a voice. But as it turns out, word about Lai Pei's golden voice travels fast, as even Hal arrives at the estate in order to see for himself. It turns out that the reason as to why Hal knows of Lai Pei's singing is because of Robel and Lucius not being able to keep their excitement at bragging about their little sister's achievement. In truth, Lucius had a little bit more restraint, but still, even he won't allow his sister to be compared to a human anymore. Anyhow, Hal urges Lai Pei to sing to him too, but the latter is still. She's still embarrassed at singing folk songs when her family always doesn't specify it as such whenever they tell her stories. Still, Hal perseveres and instead tries to bribe Lai Pei with high-class hazelnut chocolates, though Lai Pei calls him out on his blackmailing tactics. He laughs it off because of how mature she sounds just now, mainly because he finds it funny how a child like that even knows the word blackmail. But still, he even peels the chocolate himself and feeds it to Lai Pei in hopes that she would agree. Unfortunately, she didn't accept it anyway, but she sure did like the chocolate, so much so that she takes another piece from Hal as confiscation, which only makes the boy laugh even more. But right when he is again about to ask Lai Pei to visit their house, he hears Lucius commanding him to stop before he sees him menacingly staring at him from a distance. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one! Start playing the game today by joining with my link in the description, and you'll even get a super bonus as a new player with lots of vehicles, boosters, and a special 3D Dakimakura. It's free to play, and available on PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and the previous consoles too.